Hi, I'm Luke with Out of Darts. Today, Worker is back at it again. This is the Nightingale 2.0. Let's get going. Worker has been making better and better blasters over time, and one of the most popular blasters in the hobby has been the Worker Nightingale. It's an ultra compact, affordable, small, I said small already, flywheel blaster. Now this blaster's been around for a couple years and it's been very popular. We sell quite a few of them and they are a lot of fun to play with. If you've been watching for a while, you'll know that I like to take these to my family reunions because everybody gets the same blaster, kind of levels the playing field, and they're just really easy to use. Even my 8-year-old cousins had no problems playing with this blaster. This is the Nightingale 2.0. It's a completely new blaster with a lot of familiar aspects to it. Disclaimer before we go any further, we are obviously a blaster mod hobby shop and I sell this product. So this is promotional content for said product, but I want to make sure that I'm really transparent about that at all times. The original Nightingale came in at 80 and 90 United States dollars, while the upgraded new version for 2024 comes in at ranging between 90 and 110. There are two variants of this blaster available. First, you can get full auto, that's this one here. Next, you can also get a semi-automatic version, which of course has mechanical trigger linkage. So for those who aren't familiar with the blaster, this is a two-stage trigger pull, meaning when you pull the trigger a little bit, you're starting the flywheel spinning, and then when you pull it all the way, you're starting the pusher motor back here. Effectively, that looks like this. Part way, all the way. Pretty simple. It makes it really easy to use, especially for kids, and you can very easily, in a panic, just pull that trigger and a dart comes out. Ergonomically, this blaster has changed quite a bit, especially for me because I seem to have slightly large hands, or actually what I would call very average size hands. The original Nightingale is just a little bit too short of a hand. It's designed for slightly smaller hands than I have, and I always found that my pinky likes to sort of fall off the bottom and has to sit on this little nub here at the base. Not so much in the new version. Not only is the rubberized grip that's here larger and go up a little further, but it also extends further down at the bottom and has that mag wheel down at the bottom, the base plate there in metal that has tons of purchase. So when I grab this blaster and pick it up, it feels very good in my hand. While I'm talking about the mag, they've added one other little trick. These mags are the same as the original Nightingale magazines. There's one included in the box, but they've added this TPU bumper with a little fast pull loop here. And I will say it's kind of an oddball thing to include, but it does, when you don't put it backwards, it does fit on there pretty nice, and if you had really large hands, you get even more room for your palm to rest on. It also provides some protection from dropping and bouncing or breaking if you're playing on concrete, things like that. With the TPU bumper, there is a big downside. This is going to be a lot harder to get in and out of a mag bag or any sort of mag carrying device. So personally, I don't know that I would run this myself because I like to run about a dozen of these mags in a dump pouch together or paired in two in actual mag holders. In addition to the nice larger grip, which to me feels really good, it definitely has some heft to it. So that can be a pro or a con depending on your preference. With all of these metal aluminum CNC parts, there is some additional weight. But if you did want to reduce weight, you could certainly remove the top rail, the side rails, and of course the bottom sling point if you weren't going to use it. And that would lighten up the blaster by probably about a third. To me, it's got a good heft to it. It feels pretty nice, and I sort of like the details up front. While we're talking about the visual appeal, I think it's got a nice profile. It's a little bit less firearm-like, and it's definitely more space blaster. I think it has a nice feel overall. And you may notice that the front of the blaster is very chonky compared to the original. And that is probably my favorite feature. The original really did not have enough room for a proper LiPo alarm and a battery, and this new updated one has just a ton more space. Not only is there enough space for a wider variety of batteries in this compartment, but there's also this little down channel that occupies this space right here, and that allows a LiPo alarm, especially the mini alarm, to sit down there perfectly. So you can very easily get the battery in and out of here and not fuss with it whatsoever. The battery compartment is also the whole front muzzle. It's very easy to get in and out. One of my complaints with the original Nightingale is that you'll get this out, and sometimes, this one's been loosened enough, but sometimes it kind of sticks and you have to sit there and muck around with it a little bit longer than I'd like. This was really a cram to get batteries in. the new blaster is just going to be a dream. While we're talking about batteries, we've got a few more options than we came up with before. This blaster, at least in our testing, is compatible with a 4S, a 3S, or a 2S, depending on your desired FPS goals and the battery that maybe you have lying around already. The standard Nightingale Original 1.0 has about 117 FPS with a standard deviation of 7. We just re-chronographed that now with our current 20-shot average testing process. Moving on to the 4S with the Nightingale 2.0, we're getting 134 FPS with a standard deviation of 5. Pretty substantial gain in FPS, but a lot more noise. Dropping down to 3S on the Nightingale 2.0 is where things get more interesting. We're getting 127 FPS at a standard deviation of 5. So it's a 10 FPS improvement in our testing over the original, and it's a little bit quieter in my opinion. Then going to the 2S, which is the lowest option, and I think will be great for HVZ, great for indoor play. We're getting 110 with a standard deviation of 3. There is one caveat here though, and that is that voltage affects both the pusher and the flywheels. So while it changes your performance, it also changes your rate of fire. The 4S battery is giving us 15 rounds a second. The 3S battery is giving us 11 rounds per second, and the 2S is giving us 6 rounds a second. So it's a bit of a spectrum here, 15, 11, 6. Kind of depends on what you're actually using it for. I think the 6 and the low power, which is a little quieter, is going to be great for younger users who don't want to run out of ammo. But there's a kind of a range of options there, so it's something to keep in mind when selecting the battery. We'll of course have this all on the listing as well as our write-up. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the original Nightingale came out semi-auto, but they made a full auto version later. Now one of the downsides of that was that they crammed in a motor in a space that didn't fit it very well, and the full auto was not as reliable as the semi-auto as far as durability over time. Now, they've definitely improved it here. It's a slicker system. It's purpose-built from the ground up to fit in this blaster. The pusher is actually supposed to have more torque, more power, and be more reliable to get darts out. And from my testing so far, it seems like that's been the case. What I like to do, and what you shouldn't do, is overload the mag. So I've got 15 in here, and I'm essentially going to shove 17. I'm sure a lot of you know that these fit 16 and 17 if you really squish. It's hard to see on camera, but I've squished darts here for sure. So let's see if it clears that. That was too much for it, which doesn't surprise me because that's pretty glued in there. So here's one overloaded, and that clears just fine. Now I'm going to go ahead and throw the 4S back in here, and I'm going to take that mag and I'm going to overload it again to absolute max, which is something I see probably one of our most common customer service issues is people trying to shove as many darts in the full auto one as possible. I'm not trying to show this on camera, but to even do this, I'm just demolishing darts here. I now have, instead of 15, I have 18. You should not do this, but just for proof of concept, let's see if the 4S can clear it. Without a doubt, it can, and the original could definitely not do any of that. It needed to be loaded properly to 15 and no more because the pusher motor just didn't have enough torque. Let's dump some mags just to feel. So this is max rate of fire on 4S. And here's kind of rate of fire on 2S, the quietest option. I'd say on 2S it's really controllable. On 4S, it's almost impossible to get out single shots. When we were actually chronographing, poor Perry had to load single darts in every magazine so he could chronograph one at a time, put a new mag in, chronograph again. The chronograph doesn't love seeing 2 darts in a row over 10 rounds a second or so. It glitches out or crashes if we're using the app. So it's kind of more controllable. It's very interesting that you're gonna have kind of 3 battery options. It's not something I would have expected when we had ordered these initially. Another thing we should talk about are darts. Now, one of the most common problems we've had with the Nightingale 1.0, and this is entirely transferred to the 2.0 and unavoidable, is you have to use the right darts. If you put waffle heads or hard tips or FVJs, all of those are terrible in this blaster. Additionally, these mags are physically shorter and they are intended for the Gen 3 or the HE darts, which are 2 millimeters shorter at 35 mils instead of 37 millimeters. This means that a lot of the darts that are out there, like Dart Zone, none of those darts are gonna work in this blaster because of their length and their shape, or they don't work reliably. You can get them to work, but you can see that there's just not enough room in the front and the back of the magazine. And the reason for that is they made the mag small so it fits in your hand and fits in the blaster really well. And so it's not a giant grip like the previous ones were. On that note, we're currently only recommending either the lightweight or the standard darts. We haven't extensively tested the heavyweights, but we're gonna say probably don't use the heavyweights for now. They are a little firmer in tip, and the crush on this blaster is about 1 millimeter closer. And I'm just doing that by eye, we have not measured, but it looks to be a little bit tighter of a circle in there. The original had maybe 3 mils of gap, and I think we're down to about 1.5 mils or so. So somewhere in that range, use the right darts. We of course always list the right darts or the best darts on the listings for ease of figuring that out and ordering the right thing. So let's talk pros and cons and sort of overall conclusion on this blaster. I mean, the most obvious things for me is ergonomically, feels a lot better. Battery compartment, massively improved. Full auto system is definitely improved. And you get all these nice metal parts. If you like them, that's great. If you don't, you can take them off. We're looking at several years after the original release, and we've only gone up in price from $80 to about $100, give or take, depending on which model. Not a huge price increase considering all of the add-ons you're getting and the updates, so I think that's a pretty good value there. For those that are playing as an adult, the grip alone and the feel of the blaster is going to sell you on this one versus the original. If you're younger, I mean, this is a pretty good little blaster and it's lighter, so for younger users, this is probably a really good option. On to the cons, the biggest thing is that if you are trying to absolutely max out the performance, you're going to really have to listen to it. It's very, very loud on 4S. I can't say 4S is anything I'm going to use it on, but I will be testing it out in the field. I just don't see a big enough difference between 3S to 4S to warrant using a 4S. It just seems like, why not use 3S and lose 8 FPS and still be above the original. I think a big part of why this blaster got made is Worker A, wanting to improve on the original, improve the firing system so that the full auto is more reliable, can push darts harder, and to compete with blasters like the Diana. The Diana can hit what this can hit on 4S. They're pretty darn close. This might be a little higher on 4S, but this does it almost whisper quiet. It is remarkable how quiet the Diana is. However, there's the obvious elephant in the room. This is about a $100 blaster. This is $300. There is a huge discrepancy in price, and that's because this has a lot more electronics and engineering. It's got brushless flywheels, ESCs, and just a lot more going on as far as a PCB and a driver board and software, whereas this is motors, switches, and wire. It's considerably different to design, so it comes in at a much more attractive price point. I think at the end of the day, this is going to be yet another very popular worker blaster. I'm excited to see people get out and play with these. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments, especially about the grip. Do you all notice this, or am I just the only crazy one? Sometimes I feel like I am. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'm Luke at Darts.